He is an atheist detective, Rust Cole, a loving father, Joseph Cooper, lost in outer space, and a bald dragon slayer, Van Zandt, running through a rocky desert. But what kind of person is hiding behind all these masks? Today you will find out, because we talk about
Matthew McConaughey.
He is an actor, family man, sexiest man alive, traveled all over the world, philosopher, and Christian, Matthew McConaughey. How did his career begin? What words of his father did he remember for the rest of his life? And what motivates him to new victories? You're on the Biographer channel. Get comfortable, and let's get started. Matthew David McConaughey was born on November 4th, 1969 in Uvalde, Texas. He has English, German, Irish, Scottish, and Swedish roots, and he is also a relative of Confederate Brigadier General Dandridge McRae. Matthew is the third child in the family and has two older brothers, Michael and Patrick, who was adopted. Mother, Mary Kathleen, was a kindergarten teacher and published author from Trenton, New Jersey. Father, James Donald McConaughey, usually called Jim for short, was born in Mississippi. However, he grew up in Louisiana, where he played on college football teams. Jim got into the Green Bay Packers of the National Football League, but he did not become a football player. He dropped out before the start of the season, started working at the Texaco gas station, and subsequently became the head of the oil pipe supply business at Gensco. The father was not present at the birth of Matthew. He went to the bar because he suspected that the child wasn't his. He called the mother and said, "Only thing I have to say is if it's a boy, don't name him Kelly." And if at first glance it seemed that Matthew grew up in a stable and favorable family relationship, in fact it was a little different. His parents were often emotional, divorced twice, and married each other 3 times as a result. Many years later, Matthew wrote a book in which, talking about achieving goals, he told many interesting moments from his life. He remembered how at the age of 10 he got a temporary tattoo for which he was flogged. He was often punished for swearing and insults. When he first threatened to leave the house, his parents packed his bag. I was 4 when my mother left me to sink or swim. We waded into the Llano River. Within minutes, I wound up in water over my head. I flailed, and Mom shouted, "Swim or you're going over the falls." I panicked, but quickly lowered my head in the water, kicked, and used my arms to reach the bank. He was always the first of the brothers to wear out the knees in his tough-skin jeans, and when he played in the Children's Soccer League, he received the most red cards for 2 years in a row, although he was a goalie. When Matthew started whining that his only sneakers were old and unfashionable, Mom said, "Keep griping and I'll take you to meet the boy with no feet." His parents were not mean or cruel to him. Matthew remembered from childhood how they always confessed their love to each other, absolutely frankly and sincerely. They just didn't live very well at that time. Thus, the actor recalled a situation from his childhood when his father came tired from work, threw his work uniform into the washing machine, and asked his wife to put him a bigger portion of mashed potatoes. Mary lost her temper and asked, "Sure, you want more potatoes, fat man?" Matthew and his brothers already had dinner, so the boys hid behind the sofa in the living room. The mother continued to call the father a fat man. He could not stand it, threw the kitchen table, and approached her. According to Matthew, everyone in the house knew what would happen next, so Mary rushed to the phone to call the police. James was outraged, not understanding why he was working hard all day long and could not at least eat properly. Mary smashed his nose with a telephone receiver and, grabbing a chef's knife, threatened to make him worse. So, exchanging rudeness, they circled around the kitchen. The mother held a knife, the father grinned and brandished an open bottle of Heinz ketchup, splashing it on Mary. And when they got tired, they stared at each other and made love in the same place. The parents' relationship consisted of such hot situations. My father broke my mother's middle finger 4 times so that she wouldn't poke him in the face. This was how, according to Matthew, they showed their love. They were hugging, kissing, fooling around, and jokingly fighting. Their family was not vindictive. Thanks to this, Matthew learned that you can't hate, learn not to lie, and never say "I can't." Since his youth, Matthew's mother taught him to trick and be a winner in life. In 1997, his mother entered him to Little Mr. Texas contest in Bandera, where he won a prize. She framed the photo and put it on the kitchen wall. Every morning at breakfast, she pointed at the photo and said, "Look at you, winner, Little Mr. Texas, 1977. Only many years later, Matthew accidentally stumbled upon this photo in his mother's photo album.
And it says, runner-up, Little Mr. Texas.
What a sham!
And I I called my mom. I'm like, Mom, you told me I was Little Mr. Texas. She goes, well, you are. And I go, no, I looked at the trophy. It says runner-up. She was like, no, the kid who won it, they had a lot more money than us, and he bought like a three-piece suit. Nah, we call that cheating. You're Little Mr. Texas.
In 1980, they moved to Longview, Texas, where McConaughey began studying at Longview High School. When he was in the 7th grade, Matthew took part in a poetry contest. The day before the event, he was writing a poem and showing it to his mother, to which she kept repeating the same thing. Not bad. Keep working. From time to time, satisfied with what he had written, he came with a new version, but he heard the same answer. It got ridiculous. A couple of hours later, Matthew brought the poems to his mother. She read them and said nothing. She just opened the hardcover book on the marked page, put it in front of him, put her finger, and asked,
well, how's that work? She goes, look, don't complicate this. Do you understand the poem? I said, yes, ma'am. She goes, do you like the poem? I said, yes, ma'am. She goes, then it's yours.
And he won. According to him, his mother did not love her childhood and youth, so she rejected the past and invented a new one for herself and taught him this technique. Mary was sure that what you understood belongs to you. You can use it as your own and receive rewards for it. No one will find out anyway, and if they do, they won't do anything wrong. They will grumble at most and take away the medal. Apparently, this was how his mother prepared Matthew for acting long before he chose this profession. His father, on the contrary, taught him and his brothers discipline, common sense, honesty, perseverance, and modesty. He did not disdain gambling, fraudulent Ponzi schemes, loved to win, and dreamed of opening a diner on a Florida beach. He was the law and order of the family. Matthew was brought up to respect the Old Testament, but was not frightened by the torments of hell. In the parental principles of education, there was also a place for the merciful teaching of Jesus Christ. And if his father gave Matthew's brother Michael a job in a pipe company where he became the most successful salesman and worked his way into the oil business, and after a couple of years he became a millionaire, Patrick remained more family guy and babysat Matthew in his youth. He took up for his brother, let him hang out with his friends, introduced him to rock and roll, taught him how to play golf and drive a car. Michael was nicknamed Rooster in the family, which Matthew told about many years later in his book. The oldest, Michael, has been going by Rooster for 40 years now because even if he goes to sleep at 4 a.m., he always awakes at sunrise. So gradually, Matthew grew up in Longview. He overcame the teenage period when, on the advice of his mother, who was selling cosmetics at that time, he began to put mink oil on his pimply face. Because of this, acne became more and more, and the face became more and more terrible. Then he finally turned to a dermatologist against the advice of his mother and found out that he was using a cream for 40-year-old women, which in 3 weeks brought him to a severe form of nodocystic acne. The doctor prescribed a medicine that had a whole list of side effects like peeling skin, aching knees, severe headaches, allergies, and hair falling out. Matthew had been using it for a year and looked like a swollen prune. But in addition to healing from acne, according to Matthew, his father sensed an opportunity to profit and offered to sue the company that produced the cream. They went to lawyer Jerry Harris, who confirmed the possibility of filing a lawsuit if they also mentioned the moral damage caused to the guy. Under good circumstances, they could get up to $50,000. However, when the lawsuit came to court 2 years later, Matthew appeared in it with a magnificent cured skin. The lawyer listened to his testimony about how mink oil crippled his life, after which he took out a school photo album from 1988. Matthew was showing off with the most beautiful Commissa Springs with a silk sash on his chest, most handsome. The claim was withdrawn. In his senior year, Matthew had excellent grades, a job for $45 a day, 4 handicap in golf, the title of most handsome, and according to him, he dated the most beautiful girl at school. At parties, Matthew danced, seduced girls, and drove an SUV pickup truck. He was a cool, funny guy, and everyone's favorite. The actor recalled, "I drove a truck. I took the girls off-road mudding after school in that truck. I had a megaphone in the front grill, and in the school parking lot in the mornings, I'd crouch down in the cab and say through the speaker, 'Look at the jeans Kathy Cook's got on today, looking good.' Everyone loved it. Everyone laughed, especially Kathy Cook." But when he graduated from school and became an adult, he didn't know what to do next for a while. He didn't want to go into the family oil business. Matthew was considering going to law school and studying to be a lawyer, but he didn't really want to. It was then that his mother came up with the idea to make him an exchange student. Traveling is interesting, he thought. They turned to the local Rotary Club, which was engaged in a student exchange program, and found out that there was just 2 places, one in Sweden and the second in Australia. Matthew thought, sun, beaches, surfing, English, and chose Australia. His documents were immediately accepted, reviewed, and approved, after which one of the commission members said that he would become an excellent ambassador of the state of Texas in the faraway land of Australia. But first, he needed to sign one paper. It was a statement that he would return home only after a year. Matthew was surprised because he had already planned to go for a year. It was explained to him that sooner or later all students started homesick and wanted to return earlier. Thus, it was just bureaucracy that didn't allow them to return ahead of time. Matthew refused to sign the paper, but gave his word of honor that he would not break his promises and would stay in Australia for a full year. 10 days before the trip, Matthew received the first letter from Australia from the Dooley family, who were supposed to provide housing to him. "We can't wait to meet you and are so looking forward to having you in our home, Matthew. We live in paradise, near the beach on the outskirts of Sydney. You're going to love it." Upon arrival in Australia, he was greeted by Norval and Marjorie Dooley and their son, Michael Dooley. McConaughey's first impression was a surprise. They were strange people, but very smiling and obviously trying to please him. They left the airport by car and drove from suburb to suburb of Sydney for more than an hour until Matthew noticed it. I asked Norval, "So, technically it's not Sydney that you live in, right?" "No, mate," he proudly replied. "That's the big city. Sin going on over there, mate. You don't want to be living there. It's no place for civilized men. We actually live in a little place down the road here called Gosford on the Central Coast. Great spot. Beautiful beaches. You're going to love it." They reached Gosford with a population of several 100,000 people, but it turned out that they did not live there, but in Toukley, with a population of 5,000 people. More precisely, so Matthew was told until they passed Toukley. He thought they lived in Gorokan, a village with a population of 1,800 people far from the coast and beaches, until they drove up to another roundabout and turned onto a country road. After 6 miles of wasteland, they finally stopped at a lonely house in Warnervale County. No wonder, because only 305 people lived there. This was the beginning of Matthew's year in Australia, a year that actually hardened his character and made him the way the whole world would soon know him. Matthew's relationship in the Dooley family was difficult to build. All his jokes passed by Norval, who lectured and moralized him every time. He blamed all this on cultural differences. The school curriculum was familiar to Matthew and not interesting, so he began to sabotage his studies by spending whole days in the library and lovingly reading Lord Byron. Then the director noticed that Matthew was frankly bored to study the familiar school curriculum for the second time and offered him an internship at a real job. He was not paid a salary, but he received real work experience, and for this he could get school credit. He agreed, and first of all, went to train as a bank teller at the Australia and New Zealand Bank. The training was much easier. He was able to make friends with the bank manager, Connor Harrington, and often had lunch break and drank a beer with him after work. Then Matthew started an internship as a barrister's assistant. "I was enjoying my days in court, helping write closing arguments, studying the jury, researching law history, and taking notes for the jurists I was assisting. It was also great preparation for my future plans to become a lawyer." Cultural differences seriously bothered Matthew at home. He tried to become a vegetarian, so he ate only salad with ketchup, and in the evenings he did a 6-mile run. He was very thin. He described all this in small handwriting and huge 15-page letters to parents and friends in America. He managed to complete an internship as a boat mechanic, a photo processor, a construction worker, and an assistant golf pro. Half a year in the Dooley family passed terribly. Matthew had to listen to the same phrases many times about the fact that during his stay in their house he would learn to appreciate and respect, which had nothing to do with common sense. In the end, he couldn't stand it. A storm was coming in, but Matthew went for a jog and ran to the house of the manager of the local Rotary Club. After talking to him, he convinced him that he wanted to see more of Australia this year. Because of that, he would like to move to someone else. Connor Harrington, the bank manager, came to his aid and agreed to take Matthew in for the rest of the time. The Dooleys didn't mind. After a week, which was accompanied by silence from all family members, he packed up and waited for Connor Harrington's car. Suddenly, Norval stood in the doorway of the room and told Matthew that they had decided that he would stay with them. The guy couldn't stand it and smashed through the door with his fist, threatening Norval with gravel in the ass. When the car arrived for Matthew, none of the family members were against his moving and saw him off like their own son, with tears in their eyes. He remembered, "Before my trip to Australia, I was never an introspective man. On that trip, I was forced to look inside myself for the first time to make sense of what was going on around me." Only a couple of weeks before leaving Australia, having a great time surrounded by kind, companionable people who agreed to take Macca in. This was the nickname he was given in Australia. He was asked, "How did you live with the Dooleys for that long? They're out of their minds." Matthew screamed in anger, "Did you know everything from the very beginning?" Everyone laughed, and soon he was rolling on the floor with laughter. It turned out that there were such jokes in Australia. Upon returning home, Matthew sent out applications for admission to 4 colleges: Duke, Grambling, UT Austin, and Southern Methodist. Everyone was ready to accept him, but he wanted to study at Southern Methodist University because it was located in Dallas. However, the family had financial problems at that time. Since this was a private university, studying there would cost $18,000 a year, and his father wanted Matthew to go to UT Austin, a public university where a year of study cost only $5,000. Out of respect for his father, Matthew agreed, although he did not admit to him why. At the end of the second year, the guy realized that he had changed his mind and did not want to be a lawyer. The prospect of spending 10 years to achieve something only by the age of 30 scared him. All this time, Matthew was writing stories down in his diary. One day, he showed a couple of them to his friend Rob Bindler, who studied at the Faculty of Cinematography at New York University. Rob appreciated them and suggested Matthew enter the Faculty of Cinematography. He saw in his friend the gift of a good storyteller. And if at first Matthew thought this was not for him, then after he came across the book The Greatest Salesman in the World and read the phrase, "I will form good habits and become their slave," he realized that lying to himself was a bad habit, and he wanted to enter the Faculty of Cinematography. Matthew called his father, and he approved of his decision. "Well, don't half-ass it. Of all the things my dad could have said, of all the reactions he could have had, it was the best words he could have ever said to me. With those words, he not only gave me his blessing and consent, he gave me his approval and validation." Admission required an application in the form of a short film or other work of art, which Matthew did not have. But his average score of 3.82 ensured him not just admission but also an advanced training program. Grades didn't mean anything anymore, and Matthew had to either make a movie or play a role to show that he deserved attention. Therefore, soon he signed with the local acting agency of Donna Adams and got a job as an intern in an advertising company where he worked in his spare time. He regularly went to audition for music videos and beer ads, but was rejected everywhere. Even at the first meeting, Donna Adams noticed that Matthew had good-looking hands and a great future awaited him if he stopped biting his nails, and he received his first paid order as a model of hands. He missed classes and lectures, but was engaged in the accumulation of practical knowledge. Matthew directed black and white short films and shot them on 16mm with a Bolex camera, edited films, was an assistant director in other classmates' films, directed photography, wrote scripts, and played roles. The dean of the faculty was dissatisfied with the guy's missing compulsory classes, but Matthew offered him a deal. He continued to miss class, but came to all exams, prepared, and got C's. The dean didn't say anything, but as a result, it happened. In the spring of 1993, Matthew successfully received a Bachelor of Science degree in radio, television, and film. At the same time, Matthew wasn't satisfied with the earnings of the model of hands, since he earned little and not constantly. So he got a job as a waiter at the Catfish Station Cafe where the blues was played. Matthew worked there for the next 2 years and became friends with many of his visitors, and with the owner of the cafe, Homer. They remained friends for many years. Well, that's how most famous actors started their careers. They worked part-time in a cafe and spent all their free time at auditions. Write in the comments about the life of which other actors you would like to know. We all read carefully and listen to the opinions of our viewers. Things were going well for Matthew, but in parallel with how he was approaching graduation from university, the aspiring actor did not get a single significant role. Everything changed at the end of 1992. Even when he had money, Matthew did not deny himself a free drink and went with his girlfriend Tania to the bar of the Hyatt Hotel, where his classmate Sam was the bartender. Once, we quote, "There's a guy at the end of the bar who's in town producing a movie." Sam offered to introduce Matthew to him. It was casting director Don Phillips, who recently selected Sean Penn for Fast Times. Matthew decided to get acquainted and got into a conversation with Don about everything, finding common topics like golf. When they were kicked out of the bar, drunk, and they started calling a taxi, Don asked McConaughey if he had been filmed anywhere. He honestly admitted that for 2 seconds he appeared in a commercial for Miller Lite beer and played a boyfriend in the video Walk Away Joe, a song by Trisha Yearwood. Don said that he was just selecting actors for one film and there was a role for him. He invited Matthew to come to the specified address and take the script where his 3 scenes would be marked. In the morning, Matthew held a script in his hands where his name was on the cover, and 2 weeks later, the auditions began.
Hey, what is the boy? You're going to end up in jail pumping that kind of shit.
That's what I love about high school girls, man.
Matthew auditioned for the coming-of-age comedy film Dazed and Confused, directed by Richard Linklater, who considered him too handsome for the role. Nevertheless, Matthew got the role, and he became a member of a full-fledged acting ensemble consisting of Jason London, Ben Affleck, Mila Djokovic, Cole Hauser, Park Posey, Adam Goldberg, and others who later became real stars. He played the role of David Wooderson, a 22-year-old guy who preferred to hang around the school all the time. The image of the tough guy came to his mind immediately when he remembered his older brother Patrick, smoking and leaning against the brick wall of the school. But in order to better understand his character, the actor had to answer himself a few questions. What did his character like, and how would he act in some situation? As a result, the first scene with Matthew McConaughey's first lines on the big screen was the one that was not even in the script initially.
All right.
These 3 words, the 3 distinctive features of Wooderson, have become widely known and even to some extent iconic. They are quoted, written on t-shirts and in the form of tattoos, and according to the actor, someone still continues to bug him of that phrase even 28 years later. In the script, his character was given only 3 scenes, but Matthew spent 3 weeks on the set. Many scenes were improvised and written already on the set.
You know Wooderson?
Oh. How's it going, man?
Hey. Pretty good. How's it going with you?
Say, man, you got a joint?
Matthew didn't know then that the activity, which began as a summer hobby, would become a career for him. The film was released in September 1993 and received positive reviews from critics and viewers. The news of his father's death spoiled the joyful note for Matthew. He died from a heart attack 5 days after the start of filming. According to the actor, his father predicted his death, only in bed making love to his wife, and that's exactly what happened to him. That evening, Matthew left for Houston, where an Irish wake was held 2 days later, where about 100 friends came to remember funny stories from his father's life. This event was the last serious test, the last stage of growing up, which changed Matthew and his life forever. I think it's about living. Even though my dad's no longer physically here, his spirit is still alive in me for as long as I keep it alive. I can still talk to him, do my best to live by what he taught me, and keep him alive forever. Before the end of his studies at the university, Matthew managed to play a short, inconspicuous role in Bob Balaban's My Boyfriend's Back, starred in an episode of the documentary television series Unsolved Mysteries, and another music video. And his first directorial work was the short documentary Chicano Chariots, which told about the subculture of lowriders that was popular among the Spanish-speaking population in the south of the United States. Immediately after graduation, Matthew McConaughey decided to go to Hollywood and intended to conquer it. He planned to stay with Don Phillips for some time while he was looking for a job as an actor, and received an offer to take the place of a production assistant on the set of the Coen brothers film The Hudsucker Proxy, which was going to begin in a few months. At the same time, he was offered a small role, literally for one shooting day, in the film Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. He was somebody like a Romeo for Renee Zellweger, a mysterious motorcyclist in a leather jacket and sunglasses who appeared at the beginning and end of the film to take the miraculously escaped heroine into the sunset. At some point, when Matthew came to take the script, the director of the film, Tim Henkel, asked him if he knew someone who could be suitable for the role of the main antagonist, the one-legged Vilmer. He advised a couple people from the Donna Adams agency and left, but returned a couple minutes later and said he wanted to try out for the role of Vilmer. He took a chance and easily got the role.
He's dead now.
Now he had to spend not 1 day on the set, but 4 weeks. The trip to the West was postponed for a month. The film was shot in McConaughey and Renee Zellweger's native Texas in the area of Austin, and for both it was the first iconic role. The picture was so low budget and chamber that there were many ordinary locals among the crew and actors. At the release, the picture turned out to be an absolute failure, both critically and commercially. But by that time, Matthew had already happily made it to Hollywood and settled with Dawn. However, the filming of The Hudsucker Proxy was postponed, and the actor was stuck in California without a job. He asked Don for help finding an agent, hinting that he really needed money, but he replied convincingly, "You shut that fuck up right now. This town smells needy. You are done for before you even get started. You hear me? You need to be cool." He advised McConaughey to go to Europe for a while and not return until he stopped thinking that he needed something. That's what Matthew did. He packed up, took the remaining cash, and went to Amsterdam with Cole Hauser and Rory Cochrane, with whom he became friends on the set of Dazed and Confused. There, they rented 3 motorcycles for a month and went on a trip to Europe: Germany, Austria, the Swiss Alps, Italy. After 11 days of enjoying the beauty surrounding them, Rory Cochrane wrecked a rented Ducati, although he only got off with fright. The friends thought that the trip was over, but the owner of the motorcycle dealership took the broken Ducati the very next day and gave them a new one. Their journey continued. They drank water from Austrian streams, had dinners in Mussolini's hideout, and danced in Rimini till sunrise. Returning the rented motorcycles a month later, they happily returned to the United States, and Matthew, no longer in need of agents, again settled with Don Phillips. Soon, an agency was found without problems, and surprisingly, Matthew managed not to get lost in supporting roles or Category D projects. A week later, he successfully passed his first Hollywood screen test in the comedy drama Boys on the Side. Whoopi Goldberg got the main role in the film, and he received the role of Abe Lincoln, the honest husband of the heroine Drew Barrymore.
You're so beautiful.
No, I'm not.
Oh, yes, you are.
Filming took place in Tucson, Arizona. Instead of staying at a motel like all actors, he rented an adobe house on the outskirts of the city next to Saguaro Park. Matthew took a puppy from a local homeless shelter, a mix between a black Labrador and a Chow Chow, and named it Miss Hud. Under the terms of the lease, he even had a housekeeper who put things in order and ironed his clothes. He was in a pleasant shock. At the same time, Matthew received an invitation to another audition, but this time in the Disney film Angels in the Outfield, directed by William Deere. The main roles were played by Danny Glover, Tony Danza, and Christopher Lloyd, and future stars Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Adrian Brody appeared in the supporting roles with McConaughey. Matthew played the role of baseball player Ben Williams, a typical American guy. He appeared at the casting for the film in exactly this way: a white t-shirt, baseball cap with an American flag. The only question was, do you play baseball? Matthew, who played it from the age of 6 to 18, got the role and almost $50,000 in fees for the fact that he just played baseball. Both films were well received by critics and normally collected at the box office, but as we remember, Matthew's roles were still secondary.
Nice catch yesterday, man. How did it feel? Or did it all happen so fast you don't even remember?
I felt weightless, like somebody had me by the arm, Skip. How'd I do that?
Other less significant ones were the role of El Rojo in the crime thriller directed by Brian Koch's Scorpion Spring, where he was invited for one scene without any auditions and got $10,000, as well as the role of the legendary sheriff and the city's favorite Buddy Deeds in the neo-Western mystery film Lone Star, released in 1996. According to the actor, he did not watch Scorpion Spring. The fact was that Matthew did not prepare for that one scene with his character at all because he felt that it was enough to understand the character and act on a whim. He didn't even look at the script before filming began, but there was a monologue for several pages in Spanish. Since then, he realized it was always necessary to prepare for any role. Although Matthew's roles in those years were insignificant, it was in the mid-90s that his career rapidly went uphill. He signed up for acting classes for the first time in order to really learn what he had been doing intuitively until now, relying on his own flair. He was learning again how to read the script correctly, what to look for in the role, how to prepare for it, and how to study the material. Soon, Matthew dropped out of the course and met Joel Schumacher. The director wanted to discuss the possibility of Matthew appearing in the movie A Time to Kill. The irresponsibility of my half-cocked idea not to fully prepare for that last part had value. I was embarrassed. The embarrassment pissed me off, and that rage made me more daring. This time, he read not only the script, but also the book. He was offered to play Freddie Lee Cobb, the guy who headed the Ku Klux Klan branch in a backwater Mississippi town. Matthew liked the role, but he wanted the main one, lawyer Jake Brigance. He asked the director who was hired for this role, and Joe Schumacher said that it was not yet known, and asked who Matthew thought should be hired. He pointed to himself. The director agreed, but said that the studio would never want a little-known actor for the main role. It so happened that Sandra Bullock, approved for the supporting role by that time, suddenly became a box office star, and the studio was ready to risk giving the main role to a lesser-known actor. However, this did not mean that Matthew was considered as the main contender. Woody Harrelson was cast for the role of Jake Briggins. Years later, they became great friends and called each other brother from another mother. According to Woody, in his youth, Matthew's mother had an affair with his father, Charles Harrelson, and they might be half-brothers. Even after a couple of months, the actor for the main role was not approved. The selection involved the author of the original book, who was against the candidacy of Harrelson. Then, Joel Schumacher called Matthew and invited him to audition. He asked the actor not just to play according to the script, but on the contrary, to put aside it and be himself, because he was a character. Then McConaughey flew into a rage, rushed around the hall, and spoke out in a way that no lawyer would have spoken out. Otherwise, he could have been put behind bars. He was sweating with rage. This audition was accepted, and Matthew got the role.
Come on, lover boy, let's get to court.
The first major role in the cast, with Sandra Bullock, Samuel L. Jackson, and Kevin Spacey, brought Matthew his first MTV Movie Awards award in the Best Breakthrough Performance category and his first fame. In just one night, he became famous. He remembered how on the day of the premiere, he walked down the street past hundreds of people to the diner for his favorite sandwich. And a day later, on the way to the diner, almost all passers-by looked at him. On the covers of magazines, McConaughey was declared the hope of cinema and the savior of the film industry. His life changed forever. The world turned into a mirror. He was constantly recognized by strangers. Some approached with questions and advice without even greeting. A Time to Kill, only on the first day, collected $15 million at the box office, and by the end of the screening, this amount had grown to $152 million. And if up to this point Matthew had received one invitation to the project and 9 refusals, now he was bombarded with invitations and could be refused only one time. In an interview, he was asked how he perceived this wave of success and what will happen next.
I can't say. I don't have a specific strategy, but I will say that a year ago I was looking for work. You know, people say, so why did you choose this? I said, I didn't choose it. I got to work. I said, I get to work? And then it just turned out that it's such a great role and a great story. Now I have the power of some choice now. You know, I can get it down to, I've had the opportunity to get it down to a few and go, this one, I'm going to have to cut some losses. There are not enough hours in the day. I can find something not just that is special, but is really special. That really means something. And there is no rush. Lean horse for the long ride, which is what I'd like to do, and do good work, have a library that I can look back on that I respect, is not about, let's see how many.
In the same year, the actor appeared in several more films. For example, he had a minor role in the road comedy Larger Than Life, in which Bill Murray played the main role. The picture turned out to be an extreme failure, both critically and commercially. In parallel, McConaughey appeared in the independent comedy Glory Days, starring Ben Affleck and Sam Rockwell. With Ben Affleck, they got their start together in Dazed and Confused, but they still bet more on Ben's popularity. Therefore, this time he had the main role, and Matthew did not even have a minor role, but a small cameo of a rental truck salesman. Matt Damon, Brendan Fraser, and other increasingly popular actors also appeared in cameos. The picture collected pennies at the box office. Not knowing how to cope with fame, Matthew went to the Monastery of Christ in the desert on the banks of Rio Chama River in Abiquiu, New Mexico, to readjust and recover spiritually. He walked a lot in the desert with his new acquaintance, Brother Christian, and poured his heart out to him about sinful desires and lustful thoughts that came when he tried to be sincere. He said that he no longer felt like himself and began to cry, to which Brother Christian replied with silence, and only 4 hours later, when Matthew fell silent, he replied to him, "Me too." Around the same time period, Matthew was choosing a new project for himself. The Warner Brothers studio, with which he signed a contract before A Time to Kill, allowed him to choose 2 more projects on his own. One night he had a vivid dream about the Amazon, and he decided that this was a sign. So he packed up and went on a trip to South America for 22 days. Matthew walked 80 miles across Peru, visited Machu Picchu, got to Amazon, and swam there. So he felt that he was completely cleansed and began to appreciate every moment of his life. The actor figured himself out and returned to work with renewed vigor. Matthew chose science fiction drama film directed by Robert Zemeckis' Contact as his next project to return to Hollywood. His partners in the project were James Woods, John Hurt, but Jodie Foster and he got the main role. McConaughey played Palmer Joss, a Christian philosopher and the former love interest of Jodie Foster's heroine.
That's fringe.
crossed paths with this guy before. I mean, something like that must really chap his ass, huh? Compass. Good for you, Al.
Yes, he had the right to choose for himself the main role in another project, but he made a choice in favor of the one he felt more interested in. The arguments in favor of the film were the presence of a philanthropic character and a history of self-discovery, and in addition, the opportunity to work with an eminent director. The film was a success among critics and viewers, grossing over $171 million at the box office. Another Matthew film in 1997 was the historical drama directed by Steven Spielberg, Amistad, based on the events of 1839 when a riot of captive slaves on a ship turned into a long-running lawsuit. This time, Matthew had a minor role, but he worked with such talented actors as Morgan Freeman and Anthony Hopkins, and Spielberg directed it all. Obviously, Matthew didn't study to be a lawyer for nothing. Continuing to gain experience from more skilled colleagues like a sponge, he played the role of lawyer Roger Sherman Baldwin, who became most famous thanks to the Amistad case. He was a member of the Connecticut State Senate, and after this high-profile case, his career took off.
Well, as a matter of fact, you probably could help me, Mr. Tappan. But that's not why I'm here. You see, I'd like to help you.
The picture was warmly received by critics, and although it did not collect so confidently at the box office due to the genre and theme, it still showed a good result. Both of Matthew's films received quite a lot of nominations and awards that year, but they haven't yet brought results for him personally. At the end of filming, the actor decided to take a little rest and drive around America. McConaughey purchased a 1996 GMC Savannah van and converted it into a full-fledged mobile home, removed the seats in the cabin, leaving only the front ones, installed a custom-made bar with a built-in refrigerator and sink, put a megaphone like he had on his school pickup truck, and a microphone connected to a cassette recorder, so he could record his thoughts while driving. Many of these tapes he later deciphered and used in writing his book. Matthew spent $10,000 on an Alpine amplifier, Tancredi equalizer, and Focal ES speakers, recreated a vintage audio system, and installed a couch covered with artificial leopard skin at the end of the cabin. In addition, he drilled a hole in the floor next to the steering wheel so as not to turn to the roadside whenever he needed to go to the toilet. I named that van Cosmo, and Miss Hud and I hit the road. After a few months traversing the states and either sleeping on that leather-skinned bed or in a motel, Miss Hud and I decided we were ready to commit to being road dogs. He bought a 28-foot Airstream International CCD trailer, attached it to the Cosmo, and continued his journey with a new mobile home, having traveled 48 states out of 49. He even met with directors while traveling around the country. In 1998, McConaughey appeared in the film of his old friend Richard Linklater, The Newton Boys, about bandit brothers and the most successful bank and train robbers in the history of the United States. All the characters were from Uvalde, as Matthew was. He played the main role of one of the brothers, Willis Newton.
I come around the corner, and who do I see bogged down to her knees in mud with a frog stuck on the end of her gig?
The next famous director Matthew decided to work with was Ron Howard, so he appeared in the satirical comedy Ed TV, playing the role of Edward Ed Pickerney, an ordinary person who became a participant in the same titled reality show. And if it seems to you that it reminds you of something, then you are right. Many critics did not appreciate the film because of its similarity to The Truman Show, which was released about a year earlier, and the colossal budget of $80 million for such a film doomed it to failure. However, despite the criticism of the film, many liked the play of two brothers, performed by Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson. It was their first meeting on the screen, and not the last.
Who's that?
Okay. Oh, God. Oh, God.
You want me to get that?
No, I got it. Ed, don't go. Whoa. Look at that. Get in on that.
No, honey, it's not what you think. You're being misled by a manipulating medium.
Come on, guys, let's go. All right, let's take it out.
In October 1999, McConaughey got tired of traveling around America in a van, having rented a double house in a quiet Tarrytown neighborhood in downtown Austin, and enjoyed life. One day, he was watching a football match of his university team, Texas Longhorns, which won. Matthew decided to celebrate this, and from Saturday evening until late Sunday night, he celebrated this event merrily. On Monday at 2:30 in the morning, he realized that it was time to rest. After turning off the lights and undressing, McConaughey opened the window to let fresh air into the room and decided to smoke a bong. Then he decided to turn on the music and play the Afro-Cuban conga drums. And while Matthew was banging away in his bliss, the police broke into his house and arrested him naked. It turns out that they received a complaint against Matthew about a violation of public order, and he was charged with drug possession and resisting arrest. In the morning, in a state of severe hangover, he was finally released from the holding cell. Matthew got off with a fine of $50, as the police had no right to break into his house and he did not offer any resistance. He only disturbed the neighbors' sleep. 2 days later, bongo naked t-shirts were all over Austin. I framed that violating the sound ordinance ticket. However, soon the quiet area was filled with crowds of fans and Matthew had to move. The actor was not bothered by the fans, even pleased, but he felt responsible for the silence in the area, and deciding not to bother the neighbors anymore, he went back to Hollywood. At the same time, a film about the submarine U-571, directed by Jonathan Mostow, was released, where Matthew played the main role of Lieutenant Andrew Tyler. His partners in the film were Bill Paxton, Harvey Keitel, and John Bon Jovi. And although the film paid off and had good reviews, the actor was not particularly happy with the development of his career. He didn't feel that this was the best he could do, and the level he deserved. So did the critics, who predicted a great future for Matthew McConaughey after A Time to Kill. So, fearing to be out of work during the strike of the Screen Actors Guild, he agreed to star in the romantic comedy The Wedding Planner with Jennifer Lopez for a big fee. The naive film received low reviews from the critics, but at the box office it paid off with a vengeance. Matthew liked to play in comedy more than in dramas, for which it was necessary to think over his character. Therefore, he played for fun and soon signed up for another romantic comedy, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, starring Kate Hudson. The actors in the film improvised a lot. For example, the scene where Kate Hudson introduced a new dog and kissed Matthew made him genuinely surprised because there were no kisses in the script.
That's nice.
Your vision and khaki.
It's gonna be a happy little family. Just the three of us.
We are, aren't we?
Critics rated the film no better, but the audience liked it even more than the previous one, and it grossed $177.5 million at the box office with a budget of $50 million. From that moment on, Matthew expanded his acting potential and began to appear alternately in comedies, dramas, and in unexpected genres for him. So in 2002, the actor played a role in the fantastic film Reign of Fire, directed by Rob Bowman. He really wanted to pass some kind of life test and play Denton Van Zandt, an apocalyptic dragon fighter with a cigar between his teeth, devouring the raw hearts of defeated dragons. He happily shaved his head bald, but not because he saw the character that way. It was just that his thick hair was beginning to thin noticeably.
I was losing my hair in '99.
No.
What do you mean?
Yes, I was.
And
yes,
then
I
what
was.
happened?
I started rubbing my head with this stuff called Regenex, and damn if I didn't bring it back.
Is that true?
That's true.
No kidding.
I had a silver dollar right here.
He read somewhere that shaving the head strengthens the hair and it grows thicker. Because of that, he decided that Van Zandt should be shaved. This decision did not please one of the studio executives, who refused to believe that Matthew had actually shaved his head. He even wrote an angry letter in which he claimed that by this act, the actor might bring very bad karma. Matthew was hurt by this, and he especially prepared for the appearance in public. Gucci made him a blue three-piece suit to order. The actor sunbathed for several days so that his bald head did not look pale, and before appearing in public, he greased it with oil, and it shone. Quote, "That would have made Dwayne Johnson jealous." The head of the studio called him the very next day with apologies and recognition of the coolness of this image. The actor's partner in the project was Christian Bale. Matthew was training for 2 months to become a Van Zandt. He was running 5 miles barefoot in the rocky desert and butting heads with cows at his brother's ranch. Bale had also to pump up in order to not look like a haggard brat against the background of a pumped-up McConaughey. The picture was shot in the winter in Ireland, and during this time Matthew was really tired, so he decided to travel again. The film did not pay off due to the large number of graphic effects, which significantly increased the starting budget, and failed. Meanwhile, McConaughey traveled to Africa to find one of his favorite performers, Ali Ibrahim Tour, known as Ali Farka Tour. He visited Mali, sailed down the river on a pirogue, and had dinner with Ali at his house. And since everyone in Big Namato did not know that Matthew was an actor, he, being pumped up and bald, presented himself as a boxer. As a result, before leaving Africa, he managed to compete with the local strongman Mikel, and despite the draw result of the fight, he became the winner already because he accepted the challenge. I did go back, 5 years later. Mikel had 4 kids and a busted hip by then, so we didn't have another wrestling match. And there's a lot of controversy about McConaughey's hair to this day. Someone believes that all of this is fiction and lies. Someone believes that he did not just wear a bandana for a while and that he did an expensive hair transplant. But whatever it was, to condemn a person for the truthfulness of any of these statements is simply stupid. In the early 2000s, Matthew got the role of a firefighter in the low-budget film Tiptoes with Gary Oldman and Kate Beckinsale. And in the sports drama Two for the Money, he got the role of the protege of gambling magnate Al Pacino, as well as he appeared in Frailty with Bill Paxton, who simultaneously acted as the director of this picture. He also starred in the multi-million-dollar action-adventure film directed by Breck Eisner, Sahara, based on the novel of the same name. His partners in the project were Steve Zahn and Penelope Cruz, and Matthew played the role of Dirk Pitt from the National Underwater and Marine Agency. The plot of the film told the story of a treasure hunter who, together with a WHO doctor, found the American Civil War ironclad warship in the Sahara Desert.
You just lose your bag. Danger City.
Damn it, I did lose my bag.
Nothing worth dying for, I hope.
Well, that's a tough question.
Matthew was also the executive producer of the picture. Therefore, to promote the film, he drove across America on his Airstream painted with large posters of Sahara, stopping at many events such as the Daytona 500 race and signing autographs for fans. He also blogged about this trip on the MTV Entertainment website. The film was supposed to turn into a series based on the Dirk Pitt novels, but despite all the efforts, there was a box office failure, which ruined the plans. With $160 million in costs, of which Matthew received $8 million, the film grossed only $119 million. Since at that time, after returning from Africa, the actor completely lost interest in the luxuries and amenities of urban life. He preferred to surf on a board in the waves of the Pacific Ocean, walked in flip-flops, and often appeared in public shirtless with a toned torso. Perhaps due to this and filming in romantic comedies in the same 2005, People magazine named Matthew McConaughey sexiest man alive. In 2006, Matthew played in the next romantic comedy, Failure to Launch, with Sarah Jessica Parker. This genre continued to bring the actor only pleasure and to be commercially successful. However, among all his partners, Sarah Jessica Parker was the only one who really attracted Matthew.
I did let her know that. I don't know if it was the first day of shooting or the last day of shooting, but I did let her know that, absolutely.
And as the actor has already had a habit, after that he jumped into the financially disastrous biographical sports drama, We Are Marshall, playing the role of head football coach Jack Lingiel. It was at that moment that Matthew realized that he no longer enjoyed playing the same roles. He realized that he was not playing, but pretending, doing the usual everyday craft. There was no creative expression. Matthew bought a house in Hollywood Hills with a large garden and bedrooms for 5 people. He decided that it was time to change his own life, change his career, and himself. Matthew McConaughey remained an enviable bachelor for a long time. Of course, sometimes his relationship became known to the public, although it did not last long. For example, the actor was made a match with Ashley Judd, a partner in the film A Time to Kill. If there was something between them, it wasn't for long at all, because at that time, Ashley started dating singer Michael Bolton, and Matthew started a relationship with another partner on the project, Sandra Bullock. Their romance lasted 2 years, after which the actors peacefully parted. It's the work we both put in. There's a great amount of respect and love. I feel very cared for by Matthew. No matter where he is in life or where I am in mine, he could be married. I know we would stay close. And the actress turned out to be right because they are friends to this day, having houses in the same city. In 2005, while working on the film Sahara, Matthew met Penelope Cruz. After the filming was completed, they went on a trip to Mexico in the actor's van, checking whether they could live as a couple in small rooms. Despite the small language barrier, it seemed that they could still. However, already in 2006, the actors broke up, citing a busy schedule. But anyway, at that time, Matthew first saw the Brazilian model and designer Camila Alves in a bar in West Hollywood, and after that, he couldn't think about being with anyone else. My eye went up and I remember what came out of my mouth. I didn't say, "Who is that?" I went, "What is that?" As I was trying to get her attention across the room, I went in my head, "This is not the kind of woman you call over across the room. McConaughey, get your ass out of your chair and go get her." Which I did. After 3 evenings, the couple went on their first date, and since then they have not had any more first dates. Only the second and subsequent ones, since they started dating. Together, they went to the filming in which Matthew participated, traveled together to Australia, Papua New Guinea, and on July 7, 2008, the couple had their first child. the son named Levi Alves McConaughey. Meanwhile, Matthew kindly agreed to replace Owen Wilson in Ben Stiller's satirical comedy Tropic Thunder, while Owen was going through hard times in his life. McConaughey played the role of Rick the Pecker Peck, an extremely loyal agent and best friend of Speedman, played by Stiller. The film was a rather bold satire on modern Hollywood and war films, in particular about the Vietnam War. It would probably be impossible today, but at that time it had a stellar cast of Ben Stiller, Jack Black, Robert Downey Jr., Tom Cruise, and McConaughey.
We're in that chopper for hours. I don't even think we're in Vietnam anymore.
Fuck, shit. We ain't even in Nam?
No, most likely Myanmar or Laos.
The fuck is Lao?
The Golden Triangle. Oh, fuck. We're dead.
The film was a box office success. After that, before taking a short break, Matthew appeared only in the comedy Surfer Dude. It was a completely stress-free project where he again crossed paths with Woody Harrelson, telling the story of Steve Addington, a self-taught surfer who was going through an existential crisis. Matthew not only surfed in the shot, but also acted as a producer of the film. It was a complete failure. Out of the $6 million spent, the film got only $50,000. There was probably nothing worse in Matthew's career. Somewhere at that moment, Matthew's production company, which was not particularly successful, finally went bankrupt, and he decided to close both it and his small music label, J.K. Livin' Records. J.K. Livin' was created in the mid-90s. Matthew's famous saying, "Just keep livin'," which helped the confused actor struggling with the death of his father to move forward, go through good and bad times, stay true to his ideals along the way, materialized into a production company. The first project was Hands on a Hard Body, the documentary, in 1997, but 10 years later, J.K. Livin' had to be closed. According to McConaughey, it was time to get things in order. Every day, he had 5 important things to do: family, charity foundation, filming, production company, and record label. Now, there were 3 most important ones that he coped with all right. In 2009, Matthew played in another romantic comedy, Ghosts of Girlfriends Past, with Jennifer Garner. But it was the only film that year, and the actor spent most of his time with his new family. Things were going well for the couple, and already in 2010, a daughter, Vida Alves McConaughey, was born. At the same time, the girl was not the last child in the family. Matthew and Camila lived together for a long time without entering into official marriage, but on June 9, 2012, they got married. The wedding was simply luxurious. Many guests came, including a good friend of actor, Woody Harrelson. The ceremony took place at the McConaughey house in Texas on the outskirts of Austin, the couple's new home with a plot for a boat house on the shore. But this did not make the wedding cheap, because the celebration lasted 3 days. In the beginning, there was camping for guests, including air-conditioned tents, various gourmet goodies, and entertainment. During the wedding ceremony, John Cougar Mellencamp sang, and after all the guests gathered in a large, festive tent where rotisserie-style Brazilian meats and all kinds of desserts were served. But the highlight of the ceremony was the couple's children. Vida was a flower girl, and Levi brought rings on a necklace. It's funny, but no matter how well the ceremony went, even after years together, the couple has a collective problem with the memory of their wedding date. As Camila admits, they are always arguing about who made a mistake and have floating date. Matt and I are not good with dates with our marriage. We go back and forth all the time. Okay, I need to write it down. Somebody write it down. I need a reminder for this. Soon after, the McConaughey family was replenished with a 3rd child, a son named Livingston Alves McConaughey. Since Matthew first became a father, which he sometimes dreamed of as a child, inspired by the wisdom of his own father, he has completely changed his approach to work. According to him, lifestyle, living on the beach, running with his shirt off, doing romantic comedies, led to him being chosen for certain roles when he was looking for dramatic projects on other topics. This period of changing roles in Matthew's career became known as McConaissance. I got to feeling like, for a few years, I was doing something that I liked to do with romantic and action comedies, but believe me, I noticed there were other things that were not coming in, and if they were coming in, it was in an independent form with a much smaller paycheck, and nobody really wanting to get behind them. But I knew I could say no to the things I'd been doing. He had to give up projects for a couple of years to find something worthwhile, and although at first there were not many offers, by 2011, some new directors began to consider Matthew a good option for their films. So he got into the judicial thriller The Lincoln Lawyer, directed by Brad Furman. The actor played the role of the main lawyer, Mickey Haller, who was hired to protect the son of a rich businesswoman from Los Angeles in an assault case. Yeah, Matthew's education came in handy again.
He's away forever, right?
He got life, yeah.
So he'll be out in 15. Too bad. Because his victim, Donna Renteria, she's dead forever.
And it was a success. Critics were pleased with the actor's new work, and most importantly, the author of the original book on which the film was based was also pleased with McConaughey's work. In 2014, the actor became the official representative of Lincoln Cars. Of course, he continued to appear in comedies from time to time. For example, there was a minor role in the black comedy Bernie, directed by Richard Linklater, or the black comedy Killer Joe, but they did not have much success. Now Matthew's success was guaranteed by much more serious films. For example, in 2012, he appeared in the coming-of-age drama Mud, directed by Jeff Nichols. In the story, a couple of teenagers met a fugitive named Mud, played by McConaughey, hiding on a small island, and agreed to help him evade his pursuers.
See, I told somebody I'd meet him here, so... Well, I'm stuck for now, and what I got's running low.
He's a bum, Ellis. Come on.
I ain't no bum. I got money, boy.
The film was presented at the Sundance Film Festival and competed for the Palme d'Or at the 2012 Cannes Film Festival. Critics were absolutely delighted, and Mud received several different nominations and awards, but there was no main one among them: an Oscar nomination. Namely, Matthew aspired to the variety and complexity of roles after he had adjusted his life, rethought the death of his father by becoming a father himself, and began to think about what he would leave behind. In the same year, he starred in an unusual picture in the comedy drama Magic Mike, directed by Steven Soderbergh. Channing Tatum, Alex Pettyfer, Matt Bomer also starred in the film, and Matthew played the supporting role of a former stripper named Dallas, who owned Exquisite and was the boss of the Channing Tatum character.
Rule number one, this is the what can you touch and not touch rule. Can you touch it? Can you touch it?
According to McConaughey, Soderbergh called him and offered the role of Dallas, telling him what the story was about. The actor laughed and, in 10 minutes, agreed to participate. This was the second time he had accepted the role over the phone. I knew that I was just going to be able to fly. It was really fun to play someone so committed in many ways. While preparing for filming, the actors visited a strip club to see what this world was like, watch dance numbers, and learn about the backstage life of dancers. Matthew, preparing for the role, went to the Los Angeles strip mall to get used to regular waxing. The film was extremely successful. With a $7 million budget, Magic Mike grossed $167.2 million. Critics liked the film, and Matthew was supposed to be nominated for an Oscar, but for some reason he was not selected for the list of nominees, which was called dismissive by many and caused a stir. Nevertheless, Matthew had enough nominations and awards for this project, and we can say that he finally reached a new level for himself. He was no longer a rom-com superstar from the noughties. Now he was offered projects of a completely different format and scale. He played in the failed crime drama The Paperboy with Zac Efron, Nicole Kidman, and David Oyelowo, and John Cusack, based on the book of the same name. But he also appeared in a small cameo in the successful The Wolf of Wall Street by the talented director Martin Scorsese, where he played with Leonardo DiCaprio, Jonah Hill, and Margot Robbie. Interestingly, McConaughey's famous chest punches and mooing were an improvisation and a routine warm-up rite that he performed before playing. There was a shot in the scene where Leonardo DiCaprio anxiously looked away from the camera. In fact, at this moment, he looked at Martin Scorsese, waiting for his approval, and then he began to repeat after Matthew. According to DiCaprio, this set the tone of the rest of the film. And again, everyone liked the picture. Critics and viewers' ratings were on top. But Matthew was striving for a personal victory, and he achieved it. In the same 2013, Matthew appeared in the biographical drama Dallas Buyers Club, playing the role of Ron Woodruff, an AIDS patient who founded the club of the same name in the mid-'80s and struggled to get treatment. McConaughey chose this role because he saw that this was not an everyday story, but the story of a wild man. McConaughey grew up near Dallas, so he was well acquainted with the local culture. In addition, he considered the script incredibly human, with no sentimentality. To play the role, Matthew, who was pumped up for his previous project, was made to lose about 48 pounds of weight in order to look thin. At the same time, his partner in that project, Jared Leto, also lost weight, losing about 29 pounds, But these were still flowers in comparison with eyebrow removal and waxing of the whole body. His image was based on personal meetings with transgender people during the role research. At the same time, the picture could not be shot for a long time due to lack of funding. It was Matthew McConaughey who saved the situation, who, by joining the project, helped to find investments. After its premiere at the Toronto International Film Festival in 2013, Dallas Buyers Club received universal acclaim from critics and viewers who praised the film for the performance of this acting tandem. Critics wrote that McConaughey delivered the performance of his career, characterized not just by an astonishing physical transformation, but by a wellspring of deep compassion and fearlessness. Dallas Buyers Club received 6 nominations at the 86th Academy Awards, but it won the most deserving ones: Best Actor for McConaughey and Best Supporting Actor for Leto, as well as Best Makeup and Hairdressing, which had a budget of only $250. Matthew was in the 7th heaven.
To that I say, all right, all right, all right.
He thanked the Academy, the other nominees, the people who worked on the film, God, and family. In general, his speech was interesting in a slightly different way, but we will return to it later in this video. And Matthew's new project, perhaps the loudest in his career, was the epic science fiction film Interstellar, directed by Christopher Nolan. Matthew played the role of ex-NASA pilot Joseph Cooper, who was made to work as a farmer until he was invited to return to space flights. More precisely, to one flight, a desperate attempt to save the planet from an ecological apocalypse.
One for you, one for me.
Christopher Nolan wanted an actor who could embody in the film his vision of the main character, an ordinary person with whom the audience could experience an incredible story. He thought of Matthew McConaughey, whom he had recently seen in Mud during an early screening for producers. Then he came to the actor on the set of the series in which Matthew starred and offered him a role in Interstellar. The picture was revolutionary in the field of studying black holes. The director communicated with real scientists and space explorers and tried to show the cosmos in the film reliably. 5 years after the release of the film, scientists for the first time received an accurate image of a black hole. It turned out to be reliable. Nobel laureate and theoretical physicist Kip Thorne advised the film crew. Matthew remembered.
After talking to Kip and getting involved with this, to understand the science of, hey, let's look up. You know, maybe the answer is out there, and that's always was sort of an unknown. Oh, don't worry about that. It's not attainable. It's much more tangible and attainable, and even practical, which is a big message that the film poses. You know, the practicality of that.
Anna Hathaway, Jessica Chastain, Michael Caine, Timothée Chalamet, Casey Affleck, and Matt Damon also starred in the film. The operator was Hoyt van Hoytema, and the talented Hans Zimmer worked on the music. Of course, the budget of such a film turned out to be a fair one, $165 million, but Interstellar easily grossed $773.8 million at the box office. Both critics and the audience were delighted, and many still consider the film to be the best both in the career of the director and in the career of Matthew McConaughey. Well, on the set of which series Nolan found Matthew McConaughey, we think you've already guessed. In the same 2014, the actor appeared in the HBO series True Detective. He was in a duet with his good friend Woody Harrelson.
Yeah, of course, I've always taken a lot of notes. I mean, you never know what the thing's gonna be, do you?
Matthew became the first actor who was chosen for the project, for the role of Detective Rustin Rust Cole. Showrunner Nick Pizzolatto saw the actor in The Lincoln Lawyer and invited him even before the series was approved by HBO bosses. By the way, McConaughey was originally supposed to play Detective Marty Hart, but insisted that this role should be more suitable for Woody Harrelson, and he would play the role of Rust. For preparation, Matthew analyzed 450 pages of the script to study the evolution of his character throughout the story, the so-called 4 stages of Rustin Cole. By the way, all the interview scenes of Rust Cole were filmed in one day. Approximately 28 pages out of 450 were shot during an 18-hour workday. During the entire season of the series, Matthew smoked 49 cigarettes and drank 8 cans of beer on camera. And yet, this was a reference for fans. Lone Star was not only a popular beer in Texas, but also the movie Lone Star, where the actor appeared in 1996. Nick Pizzolatto's series became so successful that it was soon made an anthology of detective crime stories. However, subsequent seasons have not yet managed to catch up with the tension, atmosphere, and ratings of the first season. This was the peak of McConaughey's success and popularity. After that, he was already so unlucky with projects, and for some time he disappeared from the screens again. And before we move to the current stage of Matthew McConaughey's life, We remind you that you can subscribe to our channel and click on the bell if you like what we do. Most of the viewers watch our videos without a subscription. By clicking on the subscription button, you will be one of the first to learn about the incredible life stories, ups and downs of your favorite celebrities, and also help our channel to make better videos. Thanks. In April 2014, Time magazine included McConaughey in its annual Time 100 as one of the most influential people in the world. In the same year, the actor received his own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He received the Critics' Choice Television Award, nominations for the Primetime Emmy Award, and the Golden Globe Award for his role of Russ Cole in True Detective. Here it is, the McConaissance, in all its glory. Having found peace of mind, Matthew seemed to have finally stopped worrying about the success of films with his participation. Otherwise, it was difficult to explain why most of the pictures with his participation over the next 7 years failed and got bad reviews from both critics and viewers. For example, he played in the mystical drama The Sea of Trees, directed by Gus Van Sant. The film grossed less than $1 million with a budget of $25 million. The historical war film Free State of Jones, starring Matthew, collected $25 million at the box office, but its budget was $50 million. In the same 2016, Matthew participated in the voiceover of the stop-motion animated action fantasy film Kubo and the Two Strings, voicing Beetle, the father of a 12-year-old boy, Kubo. Critics liked the cartoon, but it failed to pay off completely. Unlike the super successful computer-animated jukebox musical comedy film Sing, where Matthew also voiced the character. He got one of the main roles, Buster Moon, an optimistic koala who planned to save its theater from closure by holding a song contest.
Sure, some folks said he was as crazy as he was stubborn, but I say wonder and magic don't come easy, pal. And oh, there would never be any doubt. The name Buster Moon would go down in entertainment history. And I should know.
Of course, now that Matthew had children who needed to watch something, he considered cartoons a great idea and gladly took part in the project. When Sing was released and grossed over $634 million at the box office, Universal and Illumination Studios announced plans to make a sequel. The sequel, Sing 2, was released in December 2021, and almost the entire cast, including Matthew, reprised their roles. The box office this time was a little less, but grossing $408.4 million was also not bad. That's what the creators of the cartoon thought, and have already launched a sequel in development. Meanwhile, Matthew starred in another failed crime drama, Gold, directed by Stephen Gaghan. Everything would be fine, but he also produced this film. The failure was not huge, but unpleasant. In 2017, the actor played the role of the main villain in the film adaptation of Stephen King's novel series of the same name, The Dark Tower. The story in the genre of a sci-fi western was unfolded around Roland, a gunslinger seeking to protect the Dark Tower. A mythical structure was a boundary between realities. Matthew performed his nemesis, Walter Paddock, known as the Man in Black.
His shine is pure. So that's how he got through.
Sure.
House demons are formidable beings, but a truly powerful psychic could override it.
The film was a long-awaited event for many fans of the original series of books, but instead it spat in their face as the creators compressed the plot of several books to the timing of 1.5-hour film. Critics were no less shocked than the fans, and it became clear that there could be no question of any sequel. Other failed projects of recent years for Matthew were the crime drama White Boy Rick, the mystical thriller Serenity, where the actor again worked with Anne Hathaway, as well as the comedy The Beach Bum, where Matthew worked with Snoop Dogg. All three projects didn't gain success, neither with critics nor with the audience. After that, Matthew had a cameo in Zach Galifianakis' Between Two Ferns, the movie.
Do you know Bradley Cooper? Is that what it is? He's another handsome guy like yourself.
He was sexiest man alive, too. He's still alive. What, you have a problem with somebody that was on the cover of People magazine?
Yeah, because genetics should not be rewarded.
Genetics are rewarded every day, man.
That's what Hitler wanted.
The latest film to date, in addition to the already mentioned Sing 2, was the action comedy film The Gentleman, directed by Guy Ritchie. There, McConaughey played the role of Michael Mickey Pearson, an entrepreneur. Well, you know, who wanted to sell his business, launching a chain of blackmail and schemes in his address. Matthew's partners on the set were Charlie Hunnam, Michelle Dockery, Hugh Grant, and Colin Farrell. It's funny that Hugh Grant and Matthew McConaughey never even crossed paths during the filming of the movie, and met for the first time only after release on The Graham Norton Show.
That's not how Michael works.
Yeah, I know. It's just having a bit of fun. Every movie needs a bit of action, doesn't it? And it's not like Michael doesn't have a reputation.
A reputation. He's been gentrified.
The Gentleman was liked by both critics and viewers, grossing more than $115 million at the box office with a budget of $22 million, thereby becoming extremely successful. Obviously, on this pleasant note, Matthew decided to take a break from filming and went into writing. His gift of storytelling was wonderfully revealed in his autobiographical book, Green Lights. And this is not just a biography. It is a collection of stories, prayers, poems, people and places, and a whole bunch of bumper stickers that he just loves. This is a kind of memoir, but the actor himself believes that this is applied literature that can change the reader's life for the better. At this point, we want to go back to that very speech of Matthew at the Oscars in 2014. It's better to listen to it in its entirety, but speaking of motivation and striving for the best, we want to show to whom the actor dedicated that victory.
Weeks. I come back 2 weeks later. This person comes up and says, "Who's your hero?" I said, "I thought about it. You know who it is?" I said, "It's me in 10 years. So I turned 25 10 years later. That same person comes to me and goes, "So are you a hero?" And I was like, "Not even close."
Motivation has become important to Matthew since he heard his father's "don't half-ass it" starting his career as an actor. Since then, he has repeatedly rethought himself and his life, organized the Just Keep Livin' Foundation, which is dedicated to helping teenage kids lead active lives and make healthy choices to become great men and women. He regularly contributes to the organization and in 2016 received the Creative Conscience Award from Unite for Humanity for his work with the organization. The book Green Lights became very successful, taking first place in the New York Times bestseller list of popular science literature for the week. And recently it became known that a new book by Matthew McConaughey, Just Because, is being prepared for release. This time it's a children's book, although according to the description, it's a soulful and irreverent collection of life lessons that empowers readers big and small to celebrate how we are all full of possibility. Also, since 2015, Matthew has worked as a guest instructor at his alma mater in Austin. 4 years later, he officially became professor of practice for the Department of Radio, Television, Film at the Moody College of Communication. Also in 2019, Matthew became a minority owner of the Austin FC professional soccer team, which plays in Major League Soccer as a member of the Western Conference. The club was founded in 2018, but the team debuted in the 2021 season. Matthew not only goes to matches and cheers for the team, he personally advertises the club's matches and tries to make it noticeable and successful. And also, Matthew has his own YouTube channel on which he posts videos from time to time with his thoughts and advice. Or maybe sing in support of the Texas Longhorns. Considering how much the actor loves Texas, there were rumors in 2022 that he planned to run for governor of Texas. The rumors were spread by McConaughey himself when he said in March 2021 that he was considering such a possibility. However, after thinking and realizing the burden of responsibility, he refused. He later joined the White House press briefing and delivered a 20-minute speech about common-sense gun laws following the Robb Elementary School shooting incident in his hometown of Uvalde. In a word, McConaughey is not discouraged at all. He lives a full life, devotes time to family and parenting, produces and voices cartoons like Agent Elvis for Netflix, supports his own football team, writes books, and charges everyone around for success. And he certainly hasn't finished his acting career yet, just waiting for the right moment to return. If you want to learn more about how McConaughey risked his health for a role that he found interesting, click on the video that appeared on your screen. There we told how he managed to get rid of the sugary roles and tried to see under a magnifying glass the reason for the failures of many projects of seemingly an ideal actor. And this is where today's video came to an end. Thank you for watching it. Be sure to like the video, charge the environment with positive, and the positive will come back to you. Bye.